Hello, hello, hello. It is Moscow Mitch Monday. Welcome. We are your Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. Very excited to talk with you tonight. Very exciting live stream. The show today, we're in a similar thread to what you've seen in the past. We're going to do Mitch in the news, but obviously this loss of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is the story that overwhelms and upends everything. So we're definitely going to spend some time there. We've actually got a bit of a kind of a tribute to her that we'll do. Doug is going to be following Mitch's Money, obviously. We're going to be joined this week in Campaign's Corner. We're going to have Betsy Foster with us to talk about healthcare, hear about how Mitch is failing us on healthcare. And then the interview this week is with Mark Murphy. So if you don't know this name, you definitely know his Mitch. You've seen the cartoons, you've seen, if you're at all in the political space, his stuff is everywhere. He's the editorial cartoonist for the Louisville Courier Journal and a fierce and informed critic of Mitch. We've also got updates on our campaigns to help ditch Mitch on November 3rd, our weekly in-person demonstrations, which was Save SCOTUS Saturday, this past Saturday. So we got some images from that. Folks, there's a lot to go over, but there are 43 days until November 3rd. Only 6 weeks to have an impact on this race. So do what you can, right? We've got plans, we've got programs, we've got stuff we're doing. If you want to pitch in to help us do it, you can hit our ActBlue account right now, make a donation. Please be generous. I know there's a lot of people fired up to help ditch Mitch, and we could use your help, that's for sure. But let's go to our amazing co-hosts today. Let's hear who are you, where are you coming from, and what's your protest sign say today? And so I'm Aaron. I'm coming from Childsburg, a lovely deed-restricted community just outside of downtown Lexington. It says that on the sign as I drove in today, deed restricted. I'm like, what does that even really mean? And why is that something we put on our sign? I don't know. I think it means there's a lot of rules living in Childsburg, but that's a whole nother live stream for a whole nother time. But what my sign says today is honor Ruth, stop Mitch. And then Kimberly, what have you got for us? Kimberly, you're muted. Kimberly, you're muted.
Oops. I have on here this wonderful, great sign right here on my phone. Can anybody see it?
I couldn't.
Can you see my sign?
I can see for a moment. You flashed for a moment. Is
I
this
was
a
a
secret sign,
flasher.
Kimberly? Is this a sign
I was a flasher. Is what I was. That's only because Ken changed it. It was sick of Mitch. It was Mitch, Moscow Mitch, with the strings attached, drawn by our fabulous Mark Murphy.
Okay.
Can you please bring it back? It's so wonderful.
People are looking at it right now. It is wonderful. That is a great looking sign. You brought in pro help. I don't know how I feel about that, Kimberly. You're just like, it's not your own sign. You got a professional who did your sign.
Well, when you have friends in high places,
Nate, what have you got? Can you match that?
I'll tell you what I got. I got some significant sign envy right about now. Man. Hey, folks, this is Nate Orshan, broadcasting live from Kits in my lovely house here in South Frankfort, Kentucky. And my sign today says, Mitchpocrisy, it stinks to high heaven.
Nice. Mitchpocrisy stinks to high heaven. We have got, signs. We've shared our signs with you. What are you doing for us? Let's see in the comments. What's your sign say? What are you going to be holding? Where are you joining us from? That's always really exciting for me when I look through the comments later. I can't look now because, I'm doing this. But later on, I do check out and see who's been engaged and what the conversation's looking like in the chat. So please add your name. Well, you don't have to put your name because it's Facebook and it's like you got your face there and the name. But, where you're from and what's your sign say. And looking forward to some engagement there. Don't be the person that shows up to the protest without a sign. Like, hey, I'm here, but I don't have a sign. Like, well, that's the point of the protest, is to show people what we're protesting. So if you don't have a sign, what are you doing?
Although if they come to our protests every Saturday at 3:00 on Harrodsburg Road in Lexington, we probably will have a sign for you.
We might. It's true. We're not going to turn you away.
No.
You can definitely show up, and we will find things for you to hold. If Kathy Ford keeps coming, we're going to have a lot of signs, and they're very bright, and they're amazing ditch signs. So you can hold maybe one of Kathy Ford's signs if you get there on time. So, all right, getting into the news, though, you know, the loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the notorious RBG, very, very sad, very, you know, obviously you can't say that I never saw this coming. Had a lot of health scares over the years, but she's just been this just intractable force of nature on the court and in our political landscape for decades. And so I think we've got a little bit of you know, some clips that we'd like to share with you.
All I ask of our brethren is that they take their feet off our necks. The arrangement said to women, you don't count as citizens, because if you're a citizen, you have obligations as well as rights. And one of the prime obligations is to participate in the system of justice. In the U.S. Attorney's Office, women were strictly forbidden in the criminal division. There was one woman in the civil division. And the excuse for not hiring women in the criminal division was they have to deal with all these tough types, and women aren't up to that. And I was amazed. I said, have you seen the lawyers' legal aid who are representing these tough types? They are women.
Sex, like race, has been made the baseline, or at least unproved assumptions, concerning an individual's potential to perform or to contribute to society. These distinctions have a common effect. They help keep woman in her place inferior to that occupied by men in our society. In that case, we argued three things. One, that this nation, if you're pregnant, you're out unless you have an abortion, violated the equal protection principle, because no man was ordered out of service because he had been the partner in the conception. No man was ordered out of service because he was about to become a father. I am grateful beyond measure for the confidence you have placed in me, and I will strive with all that I have to live up to your expectations in making this appointment.
Reminding the members of Congress that there is a First Amendment that guarantees the right to think, speak, and write without Big Brother government telling you what is correct speech. And there was a Fifth Amendment that protected us against self-incrimination.
So just a giant, you know, judicial giant, a, you know, legal mind without peer, and somebody who has truly, you know, reshaped our political landscape in many ways. So it's a huge loss. It's a loss to the institution. It's a loss to our nation, and absolutely a loss to, you know, just our, you know, the issues that she's fought for. Thankfully, she's inspired legions to, you know, kind of pick up law books and to address the issues that, you know, people are most concerned about through those channels. I think it's been amazing to see who she's inspired and how she's inspired people, even in this kind of, you know, most recent generation. You know, it's hard to imagine that, oh yeah, some 85-year-old lawyer, Supreme Court justice, is going to become a cultural icon. But yeah, she absolutely did. And yeah, great answer, absolutely. So, but what has it done to the political landscape? So let's talk a little about that. I think for our Mitch in the news, we're going to start off with Nate, who's got a story that relates to his sign, actually, I think.
That's right. Thanks, Aaron. So my spouse and fellow committee member, Kit O'Connor, has been here on Mascot Mitch Monday in order to, quote, thank, unquote, our senior senator for helping them learn how to spell the word hypocrisy. Well, sorry, Kit, but this week the word is changing to Mitchpocrisy. So going back 4 years to February 2016, after the sudden and unexpected death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, Mitch McConnell shocked a whole lot of Americans by insisting that the Senate would not vote for a replacement until the next president was sworn in, saying, quote, the American people should have a voice in the selection of their next Supreme Court justice. Therefore, this vacancy should not be filled until we have a new president. I've got to work on my Mitch con stuff. This is from a CNN essay we'll be returning to in but a moment. Now, according to Harvard historian Heather Cox Richardson, this had never happened before, and at least 14 justices had been nominated and confirmed to the Supreme Court during presidential election years, and an additional 3 had been nominated in just the presidential elections. So this is something that's, has been done quite often. But Mitch didn't care about the lack of precedent, and the end result was that there was a freeze on interviewing nominees until the next president was in office. I don't know if we were able to get the video, but okay. So here is a nice little video you're about to see from Indivisible summarizing the Mitchpocrisy. And as a reminder, the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee is a part of Indivisible.
Mr. President, the next justice could fundamentally alter the direction of the Supreme Court and have a profound impact on our country. So, of course, the American people should have a say.
What was wrong with allowing Merrick Garland to have an up or down vote?
You don't fill Supreme Court vacancies in the middle of a presidential election. We haven't filled a vacancy created in a presidential election year in 80 years. This has been the history, this has been the tradition, to not throw one of these nominees into the middle of a presidential election.
So here we are with Justice Ginsburg having passed away just 46 days before the election. And unfortunately, Mitch is trying to use a lame excuse to, surprise, surprise, justify allowing Donald Trump to nominate a replacement and then have a Senate vote. My friends, this is Mitchpocrisy at its finest, by which I mean going back on his own rationalization just to help his party secure a radical right-wing majority to the Supreme Court. And remember, these are the types of judges who will tell you with a straight face that the free speech rights of corporations make it okay for them to spend as much money as they want to affect the outcome of elections. Never mind, power drowns out the voices of ordinary Americans. It's those types of judges. Now, if you've watched Moscow Mitch Monday for more than 30 seconds, this galling Mitchpocrisy probably doesn't surprise you. But this time, the stakes are really, really high. This affects the very legitimacy of our democratic system. But don't take my word for it. Take the word instead of University of Kentucky law professor Joshua A. Douglas, who is a renowned expert on election and constitutional law and a really sober, clear-headed voice on these kinds of issues. So this is what Professor Douglas had to say in that essay on CNN, and I told you it was posted this past Saturday, September 19th. I'm just going to read a little excerpt here. Quote, filling the seat in the next 46 days, or if Trump lost, before January 20th, during the lame duck portion of his term, would take American democracy to the breaking point. Both sides would dig in their heels. At least half of Americans would view a new justice under these circumstances as legitimate. He goes on to write, and imagine the horror that the presidential election result, should the presidential election result in a dispute, Bush v. Gore style, that goes to the Supreme Court with a brand new justice confirmed under these circumstances, breaking vote. It's hard to say that the American democracy could recover. let's read that again. Hard to say that American democracy could recover. He concludes, McConnell and his fellow Republicans have the chance to show that they really care about American democracy, or they can push forward to grab power at all costs, knowing that doing so will damage democracy even further. So I guess this one goes out to all my fellow Kentucky voters who may still be on the fence. Maybe you voted for Mitch in every other election, and maybe you're a registered Democrat, but you vote Republican because you think they're, quote, pro-life, unquote. By the way, when one party keeps shrugging its shoulders about our president's disastrous coronavirus response, which is responsible for killing close to 200,000 Americans and counting, that party has lost the right to call itself pro-life. But whatever the reasons you voted for Mitch in the past, the risk of letting this man continue to threaten our very democracy is too high for us to give him another term. Please, let's make 2020 the last year Kentucky allowed Mitchpocrisy to reign supreme. From Moscow, Mitch Monday, I'm Nate Orshan.
Thank you, Nate. That was fantastic. All right, so our next story comes to us from Kimberly.
Well, Aaron, speaking of judges, Mitch rammed through 6 new Trump appointees after failing to do anything about coronavirus. This is one more reminder that Mitch doesn't care about very much beyond his efforts to reshape the judiciary and install young, incredibly conservative judges in the midst of all of this. It's also to help advance the Republican agenda to erode protections for workers, the environment, women, rest in power, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and to staunchly support corporate interests every single time they've had the opportunity. We need everyone to wake up to this, like shake yourself, wake up, because you know what? Mitch never sleeps on a judge he doesn't like. Let's go back to Merrick Garland, perhaps. Am I right? Appoint a slate of Federalist Society-approved corporate law bots. And I said that very clearly, corporate law bots. From the Yahoo News I was reading, I saw that Ari Berman, the author of Give Us the Ballot, The Modern Struggle for Voting Rights in America, argued that it was McConnell who was obstructing key votes, particularly those dealing with election protections. Mitch McConnell has been blocking $25 billion in United States Post Office funding for 124 days. I said that right, 124 days. Legislation to restore Voting Rights Act for 284 days, and legislation to prevent foreign election interference for 328 days. He wrote, but confirmed 6 more extreme Trump judges in guess how many hours? Somebody got it right, 30 hours. Yes, within 30 hours. See, he doesn't sleep. He is the Grim Reaper. He doesn't sleep at all. So who cares if people are being turned out or forced to head to the soup kitchens or food pantries? We know that even before the coronavirus hit, Mitch had voted 15 times against increasing the minimum wage. And in his time as a majority leader, has never minimum wage. Don't forget, Mitch is not for us. He's for himself and his rich corporate backers, which is not myself. I'm not rich and nor am I a corporate backer. So unless you're one of them, you really should not be voting for this man come November. Don't vote for him. Don't do it.
Yeah. I'm not gonna. You've got me convinced. I'm not gonna vote for Mitch. It's interesting though, right? So a lot of people just think like, oh, well, he's our senator and sure, he's not awesome, but he's so powerful and that's so great. He brings this power to work for us, but he never brings it to work for us, unless you're like a corporate, CEO, then you probably have his attention and you probably are getting the carve outs you want legislatively. But no, he's just about his own power. He's just about reshaping the federal judiciary. every single opportunity. 6 new extreme Trump judges in 30 hours while he's done nothing on the coronavirus, relief package. It's just, it's staggering. And yeah, he doesn't care. Thanks for that. Thanks for sharing that story. All right, so one final story for Mitch in the news, and I'm going to just go there. I'm going to talk about it. The polar coaster. Folks probably saw it last week. A Quinnipiac poll that showed Amy down by, I think, 12 points. So double digits. The headline screamed Donald in closely watched Senate race. So should we all be freaking out? Should we all be super depressed? Should we all just stop this? We should just stop doing the monthly or the weekly live stream because, I mean, fait accompli, like Mitch is going to win. He's up by 12 points. Well, that same poll had him up 5 points, the kind of few weeks before. Poll just a snapshot in a moment, right? And the reality of it is 5 points, 12 points, 1 point, whatever. The election's not today, right? The election is in 43 days, which I don't know about you, but I personally feel a little bit like maybe a hamster or a goldfish, like swimming around my bowl, like forgetting what I saw on one side as I go to the other side, right? Like my attention span is not that long. And I like to think that I'm an engaged, informed, astute, I'll say astute. I like to think I'm astute, political observer, right? So I live and breathe this stuff. And if you're like most voters, you don't, right? Most people do not care nearly so much about what's going on in politics. So the fact there are 43 days for people to kind of make up their mind about who they're going to vote for, sure, there's a lot of like calcification in our political parties. A lot of people are not going to move from one side to the other, but there's this whole big chunk of people that really don't see themselves as like team, Democrat or team Republican. There are folks who very legitimately like, I like what Trump's doing. He's beating up on that Nancy Pelosi, but I tell you what, I don't like Mitch, right? There are people who do not see a conflict there and will more than happily vote for Trump and also vote, not supporting Mitch. So I think our work is cut out for us, certainly. I don't think, a 12-point, lead by Mitch means that we should just, rest comfortably. I think it means we need to work really, really hard. We need to get good information out to people who, aren't watching this live stream, right? So when you are watching this live stream, you have raised your hand as somebody who is engaged and cares and wants to do the right thing politically, in my view. But what that means is you got people in your friend group who aren't like you either, right? You got a lot of your friend group who, would much rather just share cat videos than see posts. So what you need to do is intersperse with the cat videos some information about why Mitch fails Kentucky. So that's what we serve to do. That's our goal here, is just to give the information, because a lot of people just don't trust Mitch because, right, he's like been there forever, and he looks like he looks and he sounds like he sounds, and he does all this nasty political stuff that is not appealing. No one likes, the stuff that the Mitchpocrisy is not adored by very many people, right? So the fact that you're bringing that up and sharing that information, I don't think this is a good look for him. I think the very clear precedent around Merrick Garland versus, his statement about honoring Ruth's legacy in the first paragraph and how he's going to bring a vote on Trump's nominee, whoever the heck it is, in the second paragraph, I think that comes off as really horrible. And I don't think anyone's going to go, yeah, Mitch is my guy. I'm so glad that he's totally hypocritical and trying to ram through this this judicial appointment. So I think we just need to keep sharing that information. I think that 12 points can disappear in a minute, depending on things that forces that are either outside of our control or the information that we put into to the political discourse. So that's my challenge. That's why I don't get like freaked out about the polar coaster. I kind of like the ride, but I do think that our work is absolutely important over the next, next few bit. Remember, when we are dealing with the coronavirus crisis and Mitch is doing nothing for us, that's not a good look for him, right? When, he would prefer folks get kicked off their health care, which we're going to talk about in a minute with Betsy Foster. When he would prefer that people get kicked out of their houses, and we prefer that city or state employers go bankrupt rather than cover their pension obligations, that's not a good look for him, right? So if you present that information to people, they are not going to be psyched about the leadership of Mitch McConnell, because that's basically what it means. All right, so that's pretty much it for Mitch in the News. Thank you so much for tuning in for this information, and thank you, and Kimberly, for sharing that information. Now we're going to do our newish segment, Campaigns Corner. We're bringing in Betsy Foster to talk about how Mitch fails our Commonwealth care, and a little context for that. Over 30 years of health rankings, Kentucky has only once in those 30 years climbed out of the very basement, right? So going above 40th once to 39th in overall health, and then immediately went back to 40th. 40s. So we're in those last 10 states, those 10 laggard states in terms of healthcare and health outcomes. We are not doing well. And that entire time Mitch has been in power, where have we been? We've been just still kind of bouncing along the bottom. So we're going to talk about the policies that get us there and what we need to do about it. Thank you very much for joining us, Betsy Foster.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm with all these wonderful people that I like so much.
The interrelation between the Jones radio report and the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee's Moscow Mitch Monday continues. Thank you for coming back and joining us, Betsy. But
Sure.
You've told us the last time you were on with us that you got your start in kind of politics because of healthcare issues.
Right.
That it was your personal kind of stake in the game, and that you were forced to become like a healthcare expert around this because of the issues you've been dealing with. So tell us a little bit about what Mitch has done for healthcare for our state.
Well, just a little backstory so everybody knows. My oldest son is the oldest survivor in the world with his heart defect, and that's why I'm involved in healthcare. And actually, I've worked in the health insurance industry since I had him, expecting to go back to school to become a psychologist. That didn't work because I had to stay in place because of pre-existing condition. So I moved to Kentucky in 1987, and I became an advocate for the American Heart Association and started going to Washington immediately to meet with Mitch McConnell every year on increasing funding for NIH and other healthcare issues. So even though it may seem like I've only been active for the last 4 years, I've been active for many, many, many years. Mitch never saw us. He never talked to us. He was never positive about anything other than tobacco leaves that were on his wall and those lobbyists. But going forward from 2018, when he came into office and the Affordable Care Act was in danger of being lost, I became extremely active fighting to save it. And I thought for sure we would lose it, but John McCain came in and saved it that one day with a thumbs down, which was great. But as I was preparing for this, before Ruth Bader Ginsburg died on Friday, I was thinking, I'm just going to talk about the healthcare issues, but I can't, because one of the things that we need to realize right now that is in danger with Mitch, with President Trump, is because of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we may actually lose our healthcare and the Affordable Care Act, which is what we have in place right now, and we have nothing to replace it. So instead of talking about what healthcare should look like, I'm going to talk about what it is and why we have to come together to fight to make sure that we protect the Affordable Care Act and what we have right now. So with that being said, we talked a lot over the last, through the primaries, whether it should be Medicare for all, Affordable Care Act, throw everything out, change it. We're over that. We've lost that war. It is now, we got to have healthcare, period. So this is what we may lose on 11/10/2020. November the 10th, 2020, that is how many days after the election? 7 days. We may actually lose the Affordable Care Act in the Supreme Court. Now, I'm glad Mark is here. Maybe he can discuss this later. One of the things, or these are the things that you may possibly lose if it's overturned. Now, I'm hoping that they can't. But there'll be 135 million Americans with pre-existing conditions will be impacted. The pre-existing clause will disappear. There will be no more protections for pre-existing condition. That is a part of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, and for people in Kentucky, also known as Connect. Lifetime caps on expense returns. So somebody like my son, if they had more than $1 million in healthcare expenses in a particular year, could be maxed out for a lifetime and not be able to have any more of their bills paid. That also could occur with somebody who's injured in a car accident or any other type of serious injury. Medicaid expansion, which we now know as Obamacare Kentucky Connect, would be eliminated. 16 to 20 million people would lose their insurance. Those are the people who are caught in the middle. Adult students who benefit from having coverage through the age of 26 will not have that anymore. When my son graduated, he was 20. He was 21. He fell off my policy and did not have coverage for 7 years until the Affordable Care Act came into place. My child with the heart did not have coverage for 7 years. Talk about stress, worrying about that every day. Excuse me. The financial assistance helps people with their premiums now will be gone. Employers and insurers may offer coverage that eliminates different types of coverages, such as maternity care, prescription drugs. Gender differences could come back into play where they can charge women more than they could men because they want to charge more for maternity and other types of services. Most people are not aware that there are 90 essential services that are covered under the Affordable Care Act with no deductible and no copay. Those are things such as mammograms, colonoscopies, your routine health visits, vaccinations, and any preventative tests that you would normally have done through your life. Those would be gone, not gone, they'd still do them, but you will have to pay for them. They would not be covered by insurance at all. Cost of coverage will be significantly more because it'll be based on your risk rating, and your risk rating means what your personal health condition is. So premiums will be rated based on what your health is at that moment. And that is unaffordable. We tried that in 1992 here in Kentucky, doing risk rating, and the premiums were more than $1,000 a month. And that was how many years ago? That was a long time ago. Excuse me. The reason I bring this up is because on November the 10th, 2020, we have a new president elected, not in office, so things can still happen. We have a empty seat on the Supreme Court, which means we do not have Ruth Bader Ginsburg there to help us on November 10th. We do not have, well, hopefully we'll have some choice in this next Supreme Court justice, but it's possible that we won't, and it may be overturned. We don't have control over that. But what we have control over is Mitch McConnell and whether he returns to office or not. So in this particular case, this is an election. It is the healthcare war. The battle lines have been on, and on November the 10th, 2020, or actually November 3rd, 2020, we will decide whether or not which side of the war we're going to be on. And I'd much rather be on the side of making sure that we have insurance than not. So I'm hoping that everybody is going to vote blue for Mitch and for every Democratic candidate that we have out there for Congress, so that we can possibly, within the entire country, actually make us the majority in the Senate. So if something terrible does happen on November the 10th, we might be able to fix it before too much damage is done. So that, in a nutshell, is what I wanted to say. But with Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing away, I had decided last week that maybe after November the 3rd, I would probably get out of politics for a little while, if not ever. I actually thought about that. Then I didn't realize she did this until the day she died. She was involved every minute of her life. And I can't give up, and the rest of us can't give up. So my new phrase is, you want to know what my sign is? It's put your Ruth on every day and get out there and work. And that's it. That's it for me.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Betsy.
Sure.
Put your Ruth on. So that's 135 million Americans who will lose coverage because pre-existing, coverage for existing conditions goes away. 16 to 20 million lose it through Medicare, losing the Medicare expansion. But it truly is, life and death. This it means, because the Republicans have shown they don't have a plan. All the, the Trump blathering about the healthcare plan, they have no plan. They really never got around to the replace thing. The House repealed it again and again and again. Congressman here in the Central Kentucky 6th District, Andy Barr, enthusiastically voted again to overturn Obamacare. He was there voting for it. When it came to the Senate, finally, when John McCain, who was not, some screaming liberal, right? It was like when he realized there was no plan to do anything else, he had to say no, right? He didn't want to, but the dirty secret here is that the ACA, Obamacare, it was a Republican idea. Right. This is how you get more healthcare for people from a Republican point of view. And so they've got nothing to replace it with, because this is the best thing that Republicans could ever come up with in terms of how to expand healthcare coverage. So it's a little bit disingenuous, I think, right? To say that the Republicans are going to do something better healthcare, because this is the best they could ever have come up with. Heritage Foundation, et cetera, putting their thinking caps on, and that's where we are. They have nothing better. The Democrats have all sorts of things they'd like to do to tweak it, to make it better, all sorts of other options. But if you want to keep this coverage, you've got to elect Democrats, because the Republicans are just going to get rid of it, and they've got no plan B.
And still call Mitch every day, whether he'll pay attention or not, doesn't matter to me. Still call him and tell him you don't want him to appoint another Supreme Court justice before we get our new president. I encourage you to do that. But I really encourage you to get out and work for your candidates. And that means do lid drop, phone calls, texting, donate money. I don't care what it is. And if they're not your favorite, it's okay. You're going to have to deal with it. You have to support them. Because 6 more years of Mitch McConnell is not an option at this point. And that's the only other one you have.
Put your Ruth on and get to work. 43 days to help our candidate win, right? Because the choice is clear. Mitch will take away your health care.
Yes.
He will improve your health care, right? Yes. What do you want? It's your call. There's no kind of middle ground here. I'm going to vote for the libertarian. Libertarians are definitely going to have a much better idea of how to fix your healthcare, right? I think we need to get into this game. I know there are a lot of people that were not excited about Amy's victory. There are people that no, look, Charles is actually campaigning on an aggressive, healthcare improvement, right? And that was inspiring to a lot of people. Oh, well, he lost. I'm sorry that, for democracy, he didn't win. She won. We know she's way better. So let's get on board here and make it happen. All right. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about healthcare and how Mitch fails healthcare here in our Commonwealth. Now is our call to action. So every week we want you to do something. This is a digital demonstration. It's not just a bunch of talking heads, right? You can for a bunch of talking heads, but no, we want you to do stuff. This is got to actually get active. And I think, get your Ruth on is a good phrase. What I want to do is defend the Supreme Court, defend this seat. If you've not called Mitch's office, do it. And I know it's horrible, and he does not want to hear from us, and he does not make it easy to get a real human on the other end of the phone. But, go make your calls. He's got 7 offices. Call them all, from Port Right, here in Lexington. He's, get his attention, make his staff write it down, that you do not want to see a Supreme Court nominee, approved before this election. And it's Ruth's dying wish. You'd imagine that even somebody as horrible as Mitch would want to respect Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dying wish. You would imagine. Unfortunately. You would imagine wrong.
and around the state, I'm trying to make this happen. Everybody who knows me knows I like to make things happen. There will be some, and maybe that's what I'm going to call put your Ruth on actions to help these candidates win. So be looking out for them. And I'm hoping I'll have some support from Aaron and the MMRC. Did I get it right that time?
You did.
MMRC? Oh, wow.
MMRC.
And Mark Murphy, I'll be in touch with you too.
Welcome to Mark Murphy Monday. We've never had a guest get so many shout outs before he's actually even shown up. But I guess we should bring him on. I really think that means we should bring him on. Thank you. We're gonna say goodbye to Betsy. We're gonna bring on Mark, and obviously he's somebody whose drawings you've seen, even if you didn't know it was behind him. He's the editorial cartoonist for the Louisville Courier Journal. He's also an attorney. So, the being a editor, one of the best editorial cartoonists is just a side hustle. Is that what it is? That's the idea. And I did steal Nate's joke. All right. So quick question for you, Mark. How are you today? And what's your protest sign say today?
I'm fine. I'm going to assume I've been unmuted. Because I'm used to it. Actually, I'm pretty good at this because at my house with my family, they mute me all the time. I don't know. They just prefer that. My protest poster tonight says state of emergency. And it has 2 meanings or more. Came to me because in Louisville, the LMPD declared a state of emergency for personnel reasons. This wasn't something the mayor did, but they canceled all vacations, They canceled all time off, all leave. They've locked the city. They've declared it, from their perspective, a state of emergency because they clearly expect for there to be a decision in the Breonna Taylor case here within the next couple of days, certainly this week. But broad state of emergency is by Mitch McConnell. As I've said many times, Mitch could have stopped this, so much of this, 4 years ago. He could have taken the debate stage when there were 15 of those Republican jokers up there trying to get the nominee, please clap, and the nomination, and said, look, everybody, my life has been the United States Senate. It's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to be the new Henry Clay, and I'm going to be the new Henry Clay. I have a legacy to build, and I care about this country. Any one of these 15 people on this stage trying to represent the Republican Party in the presidential election of 2016 would be fine with me. We'll get the majority. I'll be the Senate Majority Leader. My power will expand. But he didn't do that. He knew that Donald Trump was an existential danger to the United States and to the world. He knew that the rule of law would be diminished and endangered. I don't know whether he even could predict that someday there'd be an attorney general who would basically disenfranchise entire cities by calling them Antifa sanctuaries, like our Department of Justice Bill Barr did today. I don't know that Mitch McConnell could have thought, maybe no one could have thought that far ahead to what has happened now. But the state of emergency, which is my poster, began when he didn't take that stand. And he allowed this man to become president of the United States. And then since then has done everything he can to help him. So it's not as if, at the beginning, just like for about the first 3 months, the media, everything that Donald Trump did, the media said, this is going to be his presidential moment, And of course, we all learned after about 3.5 months that there was never going to be a presidential moment. So even the mainstream media stopped saying that. I think even Fox stopped saying that. But there was still a part of me that made me think, maybe Mitch someday will be honored as a hero. Maybe he'll have his own statue in Washington, D.C., because he's there to save us from Donald Trump. He knows the danger, and he swallowed his own legacy and his pride to be in the room to make sure that the worst didn't happen. 3 years later, we know that's not true either, that the worst happened. And it's been with the assistance of and the support of Mitch McConnell, not to tell you the truth, we knew who Donald Trump was. And, he will, I used to say the history books will describe what he did to us and what he did to the world. I'm a little bit worried right now about who's going to write the history books. I think we've come that far. But we knew who he was. Shame on us. But there was still a reason, arguably, to trust Mitch McConnell's good faith and his desire to build a legacy as a statesman. And about 3.5 years ago, Nate. And I lay the blame at his feet. And I lay the blame at our feet. Betsy just talked about the number of Kentuckians that are going to lose their health care, almost certainly lose their health care, depending on the results of the election. Most of those people, and I use the word most, statistically, 2/3, 3/4 of those people who are going to lose their health care in Kentucky because of this election, they're literally the people that need the help the most. They're the people that are going to be bankrupt. They're the people who are going to struggle and decide whether or not they buy a new refrigerator because that one's broke, or whether they're going to buy their insulin. And I can't understand it. I can only think in terms of the success the Republican Party has in getting on the right, from their perspective, on the right side of the Bible issues and the moral issues, the personal morality issues, the abortion issues, and the gay rights. And they use these straw men as a way to gain their power. And that's why a person making only minimum wage, who already has had one back surgery in Hindman, Kentucky, is still going to vote for Mitch McConnell, even if you tell that person you don't have the protection anymore of even what exists in our healthcare system now. And I'll say one more thing. Kimberly should have told you about me. I'll say one more protection anymore of even what exists in our healthcare system now. And I'll say one more thing. Kimberly should have told you about me. I'll say one more thing. And that is, I disagree every time. Aaron, you're smarter than I am, and you know more about this than I do. But when people say that the Republicans don't have a health care plan, I disagree with that. I think they have a health care plan. And their health care plan is that no one has a health care plan. And I don't mean that facetiously, because then we're all on the private market. Then hospitals and physicians' practices and the pharmaceutical companies can all maximize their profits. And it's naked capitalism, and it's survival of the fittest. And frankly, I think if I said that to the Chamber of Commerce and to a room full of healthcare executives, they would probably say, yeah, I think that's about right. You accurately described the plan. So there is a Republican healthcare plan, and most of us suffer underneath it.
Yeah, die broke. That's their plan. Make sure that they suck as much money out of us as humanly possible between the time we get sick and the time we die. Well, I don't think we even asked a question besides what was your sign say. So we do have a few up to ask a question. But Kimberly, do you want to start off?
Yes, I sure do. Mr. Mark Murphy, and being an attorney and a cartoonist that likes to spend a lot of time making fun of Mitch McConnell, but I have a more serious question as a Black American woman. As this country moves into an authoritarian regime and we move into genocide, that's why this election is more important than ever. As we look over how Hitler took over Germany, and therefore we had the Holocaust, people need to understand and realize, would you not agree, that Hitler did not do it by himself? There were several individuals around him that helped that particular cause. And as I look back at history, and I know you're a history buff like me, it just seems like step by step the same thing. And we have this Mitch McConnell that is helping Trump to commit actual humanitarian crimes against people of brown and Black color. As an activist, what can we do? As a lawyer right now, what can we do? Because most people that I've talked to and sources that I have don't even trust that things can stay calm and leveled and we just do our regular voting and GOTV until November the 3rd. Do you have a sense of something maybe brewing in the witch's pot? That's what I call Trump and his whole administration and Mitch McConnell, the witch's brew.
I don't think that it's unreasonable to believe, and I can't believe I'm saying this, and if anybody had said this 3 years ago, you'd be considered a kook. I don't think it's unreasonable to believe that unless there is, when you talk about the witch's pot, unless there is an overwhelming, both popular and electoral college victory by Joe Biden, I don't think it's unreasonable to believe that Trump won't leave the office. He won't leave the office not like a Ugandan president, and he won't not leave the office like a South American dictator, at least superficially, at least on its face. But the precedent's already been established by a Republican nominee, candidate for president, that the lawsuits will begin. And this gets back full circle to the Ruth Bader Ginsburg absence on the court. And, when we're talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg not being on the court, I think we need to continue to remember that there's two other gentlemen who are on the court who shouldn't be there either. We've been through now in terms of personality flaws and personal flaws and judicial philosophies. One is better, frankly, in a lot of ways than the other. But Brett Kavanaugh shouldn't be on the United States Supreme Court. And why do we still not know why Anthony Kennedy retired when he did, with a son working at Deutsche Bank, who has all of the money that Donald Trump has been laundering for others and for himself? I digress. The election, unless it's such an obvious landslide, even then, since Donald Trump has spent the last, and Mitch McConnell, again, supporting him. And the thing that's, to a certain extent, that's even worse about Mitch McConnell is he won't say the things that Donald Trump says at his rallies because they're so ridiculous and outrageous, about voter fraud and you can't trust this and there's all these things. But he won't speak against it. And his silence is complicity. He stopped being a partisan a long time ago, and he's a collaborator now. Again, another word that you don't hear, you haven't heard the word collaborator since the Spanish Civil War or since World War II with the French. So Mitch has allowed this to happen. The election will likely be thrown to the courts. And how many judges has Donald Trump appointed through Mitch McConnell? Is it in the hundreds? There's a lot. There you go. And so all over the place, and they'll be able to pick where the case is filed. It may be in state court. Ultimately, it can always find its way to federal court. And if not, Florida with Bush v. Gore, the case up in front of the United States Supreme Court. So we may have two Donald Trump, not just conservative, but appointed by Donald Trump, deciding whether or not the election that we're getting ready to have was lawful and can be overturned, or whether we need to redo. And all those things, all that messiness works in Trump's favor. The fact that there's even a lawsuit and there's even a question helps his supporters feel important. When I first started drawing political cartoons for the Courier Journal, it's been about 13 years now. And to your first analogy, Kimberly, it would never have dawned on me or any other legitimate political cartoonist to ever use a swastika, or to make a Nazi analogy in a political cartoon. Joel Pett wouldn't have done it in Lexington because it would have been considered over the top, and it would have been considered childish and easy and not effective. But now there are legitimate parallels to, if not National Socialism, then to other authoritarian regimes. And the use of a swastika, the use of a comparison to Mussolini, or the use of, you could fill in any examples, is no longer, not only is it no longer considered over the top, it's old news at this point. And you've got to come up with something different. So it was a long way of saying, Kimberly, I think there is something in the witch's pot. And I think that with an attorney general who's quite literally willing to do everything Donald Trump asks him to do, because Barr's got his own agenda as well, which has to do with turning our nation as much into a theocracy as he can. He's said this in speeches. Yeah, we're in trouble.
Okay.
On a lighter note.
Well, now I feel like my question is going to be a little on the trivial side, but you've been at this artistic side hustle for a long, the opportunity, and some might say it's the curse of observing the reactions to your political cartoons. So what I'm curious about is, have you noticed any changes in the way Kentuckians respond to your political cartoons over time?
Yes. And I think it's the same changes that we've all seen with anything we say. When Kimberly says something, or you, or Aaron, or the organization you're with, Nate, I remember when the first person who taught me how to be a lawyer He said, one of the most important things that you can know, whether you're a prosecutor or a defender or whether you're in a civil lawsuit or whatever you're doing, is that the person on the other side of the table is an opponent, but not an enemy. The system isn't served if that other person is an enemy. And I think the same was true generally with politics. You know, both, Kentuckians, and we live in Louisville, and right over the river, there were famous Republicans who were able to reach across the aisle. And that's when you were arguing about whether or not trickle-down economics was a viable economic theory. It's not, but at least it was an argument. Now, I didn't start saying this until about, I think about a year ago, Nate, but as for the reactions of people to my art, I have enemies now, and not just opponents. And to tell you the truth, in fairness to them, I consider lots of people enemies. And that's not it doesn't sound like a very nice thing to say, but I just don't think we're in a nice time. I think Mitch McConnell is an enemy. I mean, if you're already have a pre-existing condition, health condition, and you live in Louisville or Winchester, Kentucky, and this man is going to be almost single-handedly responsible for you suffering the rest of your life, one way or the other, the stress of not having enough money, not being able to change jobs if you have a job, and then maybe literally suffering. Senate candidate Charles Booker has almost died 3 times, rationing his insulin. Is Mitch McConnell an opponent or an enemy? I don't know. It's difficult for me to criticize if you say that he's just an opponent.
Well, I think we had your congressman on the show in the past, and I think Chairman Yarmouth was willing to call out Mitch specifically as the person who has eroded our democratic norms and values in terms of in the institution more than any single person in modern history, right? So when you see the fallout of that, it's serious. That's serious, right? It's hard to look at that person as just an opponent. Of course, look at it, Mr. Long Game, right? He's all about power and advancing power, and if you use the power, why wouldn't you? Hypocrisy aside, but I do wonder, right? I mean, he and Joe Biden served a long time together. Are they like pals? I kind of don't think. Right? I don't think that's how Mitch views the world, right? I don't think Mitch has pals. I think he has, pawns and folks he can get stuff out of, and folks he can work with. He never spoke, as you said earlier, right? He didn't, call out Trump for the danger that he was. People who were running against Trump were more than willing to call out how ridiculous he was and what a buffoon and danger, and that he wasn't legitimate. They all changed their tune as soon as he won, and all the very sharp criticisms that were leveled at him by Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, and that all just kind of went away. But your point is very interesting. Scalia and RBG, right? The fact that those folks who you could not find more divergent legal viewpoints, and you'd imagine the politics around them as well, that they were dear friends, and truly appreciated and cared for each other. I think it's the fact that they're the two that most recently passed away, I think it does mark some sort of an end of an era to a degree. But one quick question: you're doing an amazing job right now, telling stories and educating people in a way, and providing levity at the same time that you make them think, which I love. You are partnering with Indivisible to do a billboard campaign right now. These big red billboards with Mitch characters, the same Mitch you will see from Mitch Please, the cover of Mitch Please. And I would be interested, like, which of those is your favorite? Which one do you think is the one everyone should see if we really want to actually move people and try to get a few more votes our way, the anti-Mitch vote? What do you think is the issue that really lands with more people?
Boy, that's tough. And it's a really great question. Which one would move the most people to vote? And it's an interesting question too, because these are all, everybody here on this Brady Bunch screen are political junkies or experts. What when I was running for office, one of the things that people always told me is it's great bumper stickers out there, but bumper stickers don't change people's minds. They make the person in the car behind them feel better knowing that there's somebody else voting for you, just because they're going to. So it's an affirmation. So I feel the same way about the billboards. I don't know. I don't have the ego. I mean, Invisibility's fabulous efforts, and Sharon Fleck and all of those, Kimberly, they all work so hard. In fact, I had, as I was saying the other day, I had the easiest job of anybody with regard to the billboards. I mean, they negotiated all over the state. They had to deal with the sensitive artists. They did everything else except I just gave them the drawings. I like, I guess from an artistic perspective, I like the Moscow Mitch hanging by the puppet strings. I just like the way, honestly, and it doesn't kind of answer your question, I like the way it looks and sets up on the billboard, meaning that it's the most, and maybe this does kind of answer your question. I think somebody's driving down the road, they look up, the lines come out of the sky, they don't end at a border. And so it's a little bit more of a jarring image. Hopefully they see that. And that gets them, that's what's great about the campaign is these people have worked so hard that they're everywhere and they're all red, or they're all different, but they're all red. They all have a very brief message. There's a picture of Mitch, and then it drives people to the website. It drives people to the Sick of Mitch, hashtag Sick of Mitch. So I guess if I wanted people to see one, it would be the Sick of Mitch. It would be the Moscow Mitch one. It's the most visually attractive, and I think that would pique their interest to go then to the next one. It's like you have your favorite Flow commercial on Progressive, right? But then you want to see all the rest of the Progressive commercials. You have your favorite Geico commercial. They're not all good, Sometimes the Geico gecko falls flat, but you still love him because you remember his other good work. And it's the same way with sports.
That's great. That's so great. Personally, I'm a big fan of the Mitch Antoinette, or that wig is so amazing.
Well, I appreciate that, and that was the one I had to fight the hardest for. So I'll make sure that Sharon and the rest of them know that you said that.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. If there's any final, very